Secrets according to Humphrey, starting at Mrs. Milam's home now. Chapter 3. Secret Guest. Even if I'd wanted to forget about ancient Egypt for a while, I couldn't. Everything we did in room 26 had something to do with that subject. Mrs. Brisbane divided the class into 4 groups. The scribes, those who were people who wrote the things down, the builders, the traders, and the artists. Each group was assigned to study one part of Egyptian life and do a project and a report on the subject. "What group would you want to be in?" I squeaked to Og during recess. He splished and splashed. "You like water," I said. "I guess you'd like to be a trader so you could travel up and down the Nile." It wasn't easy for me to figure out what I'd like to be. I like writing in my notebook, so it would be fun to be a scribe. Scribes wrote with a strange alphabet using little pictures instead of letters. They're called hieroglyphics, a word that is pronounced hieroglyphics and doesn't rhyme with anything. On the other paw, it would have been fun to be a builder and make a model pyramid. The traders were going to have a great time building a model boat, learning about ancient Egyptians traded their goods for things they needed from other places. Oh, but the artists would get to make all kinds of beautiful pots, jars, and statues. Luckily, as classroom pets, Og and I got to see what all the groups were doing. We watched them huddling together in their groups, traveling back and forth to the library, planning and laughing. Suddenly, I remembered that one of my classmates would soon be leaving. And when she'd heard about it, Mrs. Brisbane had said she couldn't be happier. I'd be sad if any one of them left. I'd miss watching Helpful Holly pass out homework, and the big smile on forgetful Phoebe's face when she remembered hers. I'd miss Rolling Rosie, popping wheelies in a wheelchair, and the way Just Joey likes to talk with me alone. Class would be duller without calm down Cassie and the way she blurts out, "Oh no," whenever something unexpected happens. How could Small Paul get along without his best friend Tall Paul? Or the other way around? I'd certainly miss Fix-It Philippe, who always knows how to fix a torn page or prop up a wobbly chair leg. Although I worry that someday he'll also fix my lock that doesn't lock. Room 26 would be sad if anyone stopped coming every day. There wasn't one student in room 26 that I wouldn't miss, and I hoped that there wasn't one student in room 26 who wouldn't miss me. Og too, of course. So as the week went on, I watched my friends working in their groups and wondered which one would be going, and how my life and the lives of all my friends would change. On Friday, Mrs. Brisbane said, "I can't remember who's taking Humphrey home for the weekend." Phoebe's hand shot up so fast it was a blur. "I am," she shouted. "It's my turn." She was happy, and so was I. Phoebe Pratt lived with her grandmother, Mrs. Lawson, while her parents were in a faraway country. I met her grandmother, who was as unsqueakably nice human. I was pretty sure I'd have a great weekend, unless Phoebe happened to have a large, fierce animal, such as a dog or a cat. "Humphrey, I hope you know how special you are," Mrs. Lawson said when she came to pick us up after school. "My boss actually let me leave work early to pick you up." Thanks, I squeaked. "See, Gran, he talks," Phoebe explained. Gran laughed. "If you say so, Phoebe." "Boing," Og chimed in. "May we take Og home too?" Phoebe asked. "I'm afraid it's too cold to take him outside to the car," Mrs. Brisbane said. "He doesn't have a fur coat like Humphrey." Boing, boing! Og dived into the water side of his tank and began to swim. "Sorry, Og," I said. Mrs. Lawson covered my cage with a small blanket and picked it up. "Stay warm this weekend, Og," I squeaked. "Bye." I'm not sure he heard me through the blanket. Phoebe and her grandmother lived in an apartment, so we had to ride the elevator. We got to the 5th floor so fast, I felt like my tummy was left on the 1st floor. "Where do you want him?" Gran asked. "My room, of course," Phoebe said, "right on my desk." I was happy to find out that Phoebe and her grandmother did not have any large animals roaming around the house. And I was so pleased to see a huge smile on Phoebe's face. In fact, I'd never seen her so happy. "Wait until I tell my mom and dad I have you home for the weekend," she said. "I wish they could meet you." Suddenly, Phoebe didn't look so happy. I knew how much she missed her parents, how far, far, far away they were. So I did everything I could think of to cheer her up. First, I climbed up the side of my cage and leapt to my tree branch. Phoebe giggled. "Go, Humphrey," she said. Next, I swung from the branch to branch to branch. "Go, Humphrey, go!" Phoebe was grinning again. Then I dropped down into my bedding and did a triple somersault. Phoebe laughed out loud. Finally, I hopped on my wheel and spun it as fast as I could. "Way to go, Humphrey!" She clapped her hands. I kept on spinning, feeling unsqueakably happy to see Phoebe smiling again. Did I hear giggling? Gran popped her head in the door. "Humphrey's so funny," Phoebe said. "Watch." Mrs. Lawson came in close to the cage. I couldn't let Phoebe down, so this time I scrambled up to the tippy top of my cage and made my way from one side to the other, paw over paw. "He's very strong," Gran said. Then I let one paw go and held on with the other paw. "Oh my," Gran said. Next, I dropped down onto my tree branch and scrambled down, down, down. "Wow," Gran exclaimed. Again, I ended up on the wheel, spinning as fast as my small hamster legs could go. "You're right, Phoebe," Gran said. "He really knows how to put on a show." I was pleased that Phoebe and her grandmother were impressed, but I wasn't sure I had enough energy to keep them smiling all weekend. "I was going to ask if you wanted to see a movie, but Humphrey's much more entertaining," Gran said. "Gran, could I invite someone over?" Phoebe asked. "Sure. Who do you want to ask?" her grandmother replied. Phoebe glanced at my cage and giggled. "I'll tell you in the kitchen," she said. "It's a secret." "Tell me," I squeaked, "please." But they'd already left the room. There was nothing to do but to wait, so I crawled into my sleeping hut and closed my eyes. I didn't open them again until Phoebe ran back in. "She's coming tomorrow, Humphrey. Surprise," she said. Who, I asked. "You'll see," Phoebe answered. "Just wait." Surprises can be a lot of fun. But what if the surprise was something like a dog or a cat? I didn't have much choice, so I waited. The surprise was Kelsey Kirkpatrick. I call her Be Careful Kelsey because she doesn't always think before she does something. "Look before you leap," Mrs. Brisbane sometimes says. Kelsey tends to leap and not look at all, but she's been working on being a lot more careful. Kelsey has long legs and bright red hair, and when she raced into Phoebe's room, she said, "Hi, Humphrey. Surprised to see me?" "Yes," I said, "and it's a good surprise." "I was hoping we could go to the zoo," Gran told the girls, "but it's pouring rain out there. I'm sure you'll think up something to do." "I've heard about the zoo. There are animals even larger and more ferocious than dogs and cats." I shivered to be just thinking about that place. I was glad that we weren't going there. The girls spent most of the day in Phoebe's room, which was great for me. It didn't take long before they were talking about ancient Egypt. "What are the builders doing?" Phoebe asked. Kelsey giggled. "We're building a pyramid. It's going to be huge." "What about the scribes?" "We're inventing our own hieroglyphics," Phoebe said. "And we're going to make papyrus, like the Egyptians did. That's like handmade paper." "Papyrus?" I repeated. "Is it made of pie?" Both girls giggled. "I think Humphrey wants to be a scribe too," Phoebe said. "He needs some papyrus." "I already am a scribe, and I don't need papyrus because I have my own little notebook." Of course, Phoebe and Kelsey don't know about that. "Papyrus is made of reeds, but we're using strips of paper," Phoebe continued. "You're making paper out of paper?" I squeaked. But of course she didn't understand me. "And we're going to write something using our special alphabet," Phoebe added. "I'd like to go to Egypt and see the pyramids," Kelsey said, "and ride a camel." "Eek," I said. Camels looked unsqueakably fearsome, especially when they show their teeth. Not only that, they spit. How rude is that? "And I'd like to go to New York City," Kelsey said. "My dad wants to take the whole family there." New York City has tall, tall, tall buildings, but I don't think they have a lot of camels. "You know what we could do?" Phoebe said. "Pretend to live in ancient Egypt." Kelsey looked excited. "Let's dress up like mummies. We could wrap ourselves in toilet paper." "Let's ask Gran," Phoebe said. The girls ran out of the room. I was glad to see Phoebe so happy. But I hoped that she and Kelsey wouldn't wrap me in toilet paper. I scurried into my sleeping hut, just in case. Humphrey's top secret scribbles. A camel's interesting to me, but keep it far away from me.